All right, welcome pilots and aviation enthusiasts. This is another episode of the Low Time Pilot Jobs podcast show, and I'm your host, Seth. You are listening to a new aviation podcast where I share with you some of the knowledge and experiences that I have had as a commercial pilot, and I want to pass on that information to you guys to help you on your journey from your first flight hour to your 1500th. In this episode, I'm going to talk about some things that you could be doing while you are first getting started as a pilot, and some of the steps that you should start taking while you're in the basic phases of your private pilot flight training. This is going to be a 3-part series, with the next 2 parts covering instrument flying, and then the third covering commercial flying, and what you can expect on the other side of your training. I'm not a CFI, but I've been there, done that, and I kind of want to show you and talk to you guys about what you can expect on the other side. So I'm going to deliver it to you from a perspective different than what your flight instructor or school is teaching you. You'll hear it from an experienced pilot. So with that being said, if you are a low-time pilot and you are trying to reach that monumental 1,500 flight hours, then this podcast might just be for you. Hopefully the information and the experiences that I share with you throughout these podcasts will give you some insight into what it looks like when you are starting to get jobs and getting paid as a pilot, if that is the path that you choose. So if you want more content like this or want to support the show, you can do that through social media and, of course, the Patreon page. Stick around until the end of the show for more details about that. I hope you enjoy this aviation podcast for low-time pilots. Let's get into it. So, just want to introduce myself. If you are a first-time listener, I'm a commercial pilot. I've been a commercial pilot since 2016, but I've been working in aviation since 2007 in all careers across aviation. So I've actually been in aviation for a long time, even though I haven't been a pilot the entire time. More recently, in the last few years, I've actually taken my aviation interests towards YouTube, and I've been creating content on YouTube under the name Mile High Firebird, which is now called Low Time Pilot Jobs, which is probably how you got to this podcast. Welcome. And of course, if you're a returning listener, I appreciate your time and glad to be talking with you again. Okay, so I've named this episode Choose Your Destination. And the reason why is because of a very specific memory that I experienced when I started my flight training. If you guys stick around, you're going to hear a lot about my background, how I became a pilot, and kind of what got me to where I am today. And I want to share that story with you because I've been through a lot. It's been an up and down process. I mean, the truth is I have these experiences, really haven't shared them, but I want to pass it forward. I want you to hear these things. I want you to know what you're in for. That can be a really good thing for you because you learn from your own mistakes, but you learn from other mistakes that people have made, and you also learn from the times that they made good choices, and you can emulate those. You can follow those. Okay, so back to my topic here. Choose your destination. So what is this episode about? Basically, let's say you're a new pilot, you've just started training, or maybe you are getting ready to train. Maybe you're thinking about being a pilot and you haven't really decided where you want to go to school, what you want to do, those kinds of things. This episode is going to be focused at the person who is just getting started. Now, if you're already past that phase, I recommend you still listen to this podcast. And the reason I say that is because you might know somebody who could benefit from this information, or, it could be something that helps you make better decisions moving forward. Not to say you have made bad decisions, but it can be a tool, a resource for you moving forward and kind of get you thinking 3 to 4 steps ahead of the game, which is really what this episode, actually what this series is about. I want to present to you guys some ideas of what you can do as you continue through your training, as you move forward, kind of have some tools in your toolbox, if that makes sense. So we'll kind of start getting into that. So if you are a low-time pilot, good chance is You might have 50 hours. You might have 10 hours. You might have never flown an airplane before. That's okay. You've got to start somewhere. And, you know, one thing that I commend you for is the fact that you're listening to this podcast, which means that you want to get better. You want to know more. You want to listen and hear advice from people who have already experienced it, which is the best thing you can do in life, regardless of what you do. If you're going for being a doctor, well, probably the best thing for you to do is go into an operating room, if you can legally, whatever, and sit there and watch and learn from the people who do it every day, or learn from the people who are experienced. That's how you're going to learn quicker. Reading, watching videos, those are all good things. Listening to podcasts, those are all good things. But you really don't know what you don't know. Okay, so I've got about 5 or 6 steps here of what you should be thinking about and what you should be doing in the first stages of your training. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is pick a good place to learn. Now you have some choices. You can go to a Part 141 school, which is usually a college, and they have, a program where you earn college credits. I went to Ames Community College in Greeley, Colorado. Really good school. They have a good flight program, and now you can pick that route, but just know that it's tied to a college course, which is a good thing. And I don't know, it could be a bad thing too because you're basically in college. If you don't plan on getting a college degree, you just want to get your private pilot's license or commercial, whatever it is that you're going for, then you're going to want to go to a Part 61 school, which is a business. It's not a school. It's a business. So like sometimes it's a ma and pa shop where, the flight instructor, he's got 3,000 hours in a 737 and now he's retired and he's teaching you how to do circles in the sky. I mean, that's basically what that is. You probably already know that information, but like I said, this is kind of aimed towards the very beginner pilot or the aviation enthusiast who wants to get into it and doesn't really know what direction to go. So depending on where you live, you should look at both. Well, it depends on kind of what you want to do, but you should look at both and kind of see which one you can get into the quickest. Sometimes you might have to wait if you want to get into a 141 school. Typically, when you sign up for a Part 61 school, you can get right in. They can get you started. You start a payment plan, and you're flying before you know it. So that's a good option. I've done both. I like them both. I really don't have any preferences except for one case. If you are a veteran of the United States, you served in the military, Air Force, Army, Navy, Marines, and you have the post 9/11 GI Bill, you can use that to get a pilot's license. That's right. That's what I did, and it worked out amazing. Basically, what you need to do is you need to go to a Part 141 school, and you have to commit to getting a commercial pilot's license. You can't just, go in there and say, I want to get a pilot's license and get your private and expect that the VA is just going to pay for it. They're not. You have to have a commercial intent because basically you're using the GI Bill for your education because you're going to get a job and work as a pilot. They will pay for that. Also, they will pay for your instrument, which is a really good thing to get, and we'll talk about that in a future episode. Actually, we'll talk about that in Part 2. So, to recap, my first tip is pick a good place to learn. Talk to people. Ask people who are at colleges. Say, hey, what do you think about this place? How are the airplanes? Are they maintained well? How are the flight instructors? Are they easy to get along with? Are they easy to understand? Is there a language barrier issue? Is there somebody there, a flight instructor, who speaks your language if you speak, Spanish or something? These are questions you can ask and should be asking as frequently as you can because you want to set yourself up for success. You really don't want to get committed to something and then find out, well, I should have found out about ABC before I signed up for this flight school. I had no idea. Don't put yourself in that position. Find a good place to learn. Talk to people. Call them. See if you can get a discovery flight. I've known some places will do that. Well, they will take you up and you can fly for, I think some places charge like $100, and the flight instructor takes you up. They fly you around the pattern. You do some landings. Well, they do the landings, and you get to experience it, which I absolutely would recommend doing that. That's what I did. I flew around Mile High Stadium in Denver, and it was really cool. It was really cool to fly around the stadium and see, the field from the sky, and get to see the city and get to see the mountain range. That was pretty cool. And that's kind of what made me decide that, yeah, I want to do this. I want to start learning how to fly small airplanes. Never knew that one day I'd be flying around Hard Rock Stadium with a banner during a Super Bowl. So that's a cool story for me. I started flying around a stadium, and then I did it for work. But that's to come. You'll hear more stories, and you can actually watch one of my videos. I recorded a video where I flew around, Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, and right before the Super Bowl. It was pretty sweet. So go check it out on YouTube if you get a chance. It was a really fun video to make, and I really loved making it. Got some cool shots in there too of picking up banners. Anyways, I gotta get back on topic. Okay, so choosing your destination. What do you need to do next? Well, this one is about the most important thing you need to do. You need to be thinking about what career path you want. What do you want to do? Do you want to become just a private pilot? Which, like I said before, if you're using the VA stuff, you're not going to be able to do that. You need to actually be a commercial pilot. Do you want to just be a private pilot? You're paying for it for yourself, or maybe you got a really nice birthday present and now you're, starting flight school. Is that your end goal? Or if not, which I assume if you're here listening to a podcast about pilot jobs, you probably want to be a commercial pilot, a professional pilot, you name it. So what do you want to do? Do you want to become an airline pilot? Do you want to fly cargo? Do you want to fly, small airplanes and stay in general aviation? Do you want to be a flight instructor? Like, what is the path that you want to take? And this is very important to figure out as soon as possible. I remember when I was, sitting in my first course. Actually, it was when I was signing up. I was doing all the administrative stuff, for signing up to this school. I remember sitting there thinking, like, what am I going to do? Like, what kind of a pilot do I want to be? And I honestly had no idea. I just knew I wanted to fly. And that's great, but it's not good enough. Yes, you want to fly. Okay, cool. But if you don't have a path, if you don't have a plan, you might fail. And I hate to be harsh, but there's an old saying, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And if you just don't know what you're going to do, it's going to be really hard for you to stay motivated, really hard for you to get your head around, this really difficult approach that you have to work on, or this really hard exam that you're working on, or these really tough questions in your ground oral exam. You got to wrap your head around your goal. So for me, I did not want to become an airline pilot. I still don't. I never want to do that job. Now, I'm not, you guys have probably learned by now, I'm not a fan of the airline jobs. I'll get into reasons why later, but it just, for now, the short and sweet is, it just doesn't suit me. I don't want to be a bus driver. I really don't. I don't want to sit there with a bunch of people behind me. I'm going to be honest with you. So, like I said, I'll get more into that later. My thing is, I want to do cool flying. I want to fly for fun. I don't want to fly for money. And that, honestly, I've carried that with me my entire pilot career. I want to fly for fun, not for money. I want to do some kind of bush flying or banner towing, which is what I ended up doing. Flying cargo planes, which is also what I ended up doing. I want to do that kind of stuff. I want to stay in general aviation. That's my thing. That's what I want to do. Like I said, I want to fly for fun, not for money. There's a fine line there because, just like with any career, it takes a long time to get to the top where you're making, hundreds of thousands of dollars doing something. However, you got to figure out what you want to do. If you want to be a flight instructor, go for it. If that's your thing, you love teaching, you love being home every single day, eat dinner with your family, go for it. If you want to be an airline pilot, you're probably going to live out of a suitcase. You're going to be in a different city every single day. I mean, you get to see the world. There's nothing wrong with that. But you're going to be living out of a hotel. That might suit you. So you figure it out. Really, really seriously figure it out as soon as you can, because then you'll be able to stay focused. But a word of caution. Once you pick what you want to do, don't change it. I mean that. You are going to really, really, really struggle. If you decide you want to be an airline pilot, then you get to the airlines and you decide, actually, I want to spray, I want to spray fields with, air tractors and do agricultural flying. It's going to be very hard for you to transition back over to that. Think of it like this. This is the way one of my favorite instructors explained it. Aviation's like a tree. At the bottom of the tree, the base of the trunk, you have your private pilot. And then you get through that and you climb the tree a little bit. And when you finish, you have the middle of the tree, and that's your instrument. That's a long section. There's a lot going on there. When you finish that, you get to the top of the tree, but not into the branches, just before the branches. And that's your commercial. You climb through your commercial, you finish it. Then you're done. What do you do now? Well, think about at the top of this tree, at the top of the trunk, are all these different branches. One branch leads out to, ag flying. One branch leads out to flight instructing. One branch leads out to helicopter tours. One branch leads out to something else, firefighting, something, whatever. Once you pick your path, let's say you want to fly for the Forest Service and you want to, fly big twins, drop in the powder, whatever it is to prevent fires or put out fires. Let's say that's what you want to do. You start going towards that direction, you start going out on that branch, and the farther you get out on that branch, the harder it is, almost impossible, to come all the way back in, pick another branch, and go all the way out. So he explained it to me this way. I'll never forget it. One of my most favorite flight instructors, ground instructors ever. And so I want to pass that on to you because every single day that I was in my training, I thought about this. This is important. Once I pick what I want to do, I'm not going to turn around and go back. And the direction I picked is I wanted to tow banners. That's what I wanted to do. I still want to do that. It's the funnest job in the world. Anyways, you probably have heard me talk about that. I also flew cargo, which was great because it still suited my personality. I'm not really the type that wants to fly in a crew environment. I kind of just like flying the airplane. The job that I was working in was a single pilot cargo operation. I have a video on that called The Life of a Cargo Pilot. You guys can watch that as well. And so that suited me, even though, it was kind of like the airlines because you had to wear a uniform and you had to have, flight logs and all that stuff. But it was different. And so it worked. And I just don't want to do anything else. I just love it. I would like to stay in this zone, stay in this area, fly cargo, fly, banners, do some really cool seaplane stuff, which I haven't got to yet. Going to get that done at some point. Bush pilot stuff. Those are the kind of jobs that I love. I just do. And so that's not for everybody though. I know a lot of people who never want to fly a tail dragger ever. If you want to be an airline pilot, it's quite an accomplishment. You should do that and focus on that. And every decision you make after that should be on that goal. You want to be an airline pilot, make decisions, take courses that will lead you to that. Which leads to my next point. The third thing you need to be thinking about in your private is what kind of endorsements do you need? What kind of training do you need? If you go to a Part 141 school, you can choose between a general aviation degree or a professional pilot degree. And if you choose the professional pilot degree, it is set up to put you in the airlines. That's kind of how that works. That you take courses about crew resource management. You take courses about everything airline stuff, and they'll put you on that path. If you choose general aviation, you can still take those courses, which I recommend, but you don't have to. So I would recommend that regardless, you should always get the following endorsements and ratings. You should always get your tail wheel, your float plane, your multi-engine, and your instrument. And the reason why I say those four is tail wheel, you will become a better pilot. When you learn to fly stick and rudder, it's you in that airplane. You feel every single bump in the wind, you feel every single dip in the wing. You just learn flying. You learn everything and you feel absolutely everything about what that airplane is doing and how to fly it. And when you get into a big airplane, you will be a way better pilot. Just trust me. I also have a video on how to become a better tailwheel pilot. Check that out if you like. Your float plane. Now, I haven't done this yet, but it's on my list because you never know. You might score a job somewhere down the road where you are flying passengers in a float plane from, I don't know, let's say, the Bahamas to some other island. Or if you go to Alaska, you're flying floats, in and out of small communities, dropping off, I don't know, supplies or even people to and from, really remote areas. You just don't know what direction you'll go. But if you do take one of those jobs while you're still building time, it will benefit you in the long run. Your multi, 100% need your multi. Obviously, big airplanes, Airbuses, Boeings, they all are multi-engine airplanes, so you need that in order to get into those jobs. But even if you don't plan on flying multi-engine, again, you will be a better pilot. You'll learn more about aerodynamics and more about adverse yaw, which if you don't know what that is yet, you will. You just will learn more about flying. You'll become a better pilot when you have to fly with one wing in the air and one dead engine, and you have to land this airplane safely. And you have half the engines you had before. It's just the kind of challenge that you need to go through. The hardest thing you'll ever do in your entire life as a career pilot is, I'm having flashbacks, landing an airplane with one engine. It's a 2-engine airplane or 4 or whatever. You have half your engines and you're landing and shooting a instrument approach, flying into bad weather where you can't see anything, all the way to the ground safely and in a 100 or 200 foot spot that is determined by the person sitting next to you. You have to do that. You have to learn how to do that. And it's the hardest thing you will ever learn to do in your life. And then you will do it and you will feel like $1 million because you just accomplished something that the Wright brothers never intended a human being to go through. So, anyways, learn to do that. And then, since I'm talking about instrument, get your instrument. You just never know when you're going to need it. Like, for example, towing banners, you don't need your instrument. You never fly in bad weather. Well, why? Because you can't see a banner flying over the beach or over a city when there's, clouds. It's pointless. Plus, it's dangerous. I'll get into that later. And it's illegal. Whatever. But let's say you decide, okay, I've towed banners for a while. That's great. I want to move on. And you decide to go into cargo. Well, now you need your instrument. And they won't even look at your resume if you don't have your instrument. You got to learn how to land those airplanes in bad weather because those packages have to get delivered. You have no choice. Unless it's like really bad lightning, thunderstorms, tornadoes, squall lines, like all the really, really, really bad weather, the kind of weather that tears airplanes apart. If it's not that, you're going to be flying in it. So you need to be prepared for that. And, honestly, I recommend all of those. Get your tail wheel, get your float, get your multi, get your instrument, and you will be set up for success. You will have a full resume. So when you present, whoever's like going to hire you for a job, you present this to them, they will say, oh, hey, that's cool. You have your tail wheel. Nice. Oh, you have your instrument. You have your multi. Well, you're a pretty good candidate. Tell me a little bit about how this works. And then boom, you're right on it. You already know because you've been there and you've done it. And you might have a leg up on the other guy who doesn't have those and is applying for the exact same job. Good chances you have more experience, they're going to like your resume more, and they are going to give you a second interview. That's just something that you want to shoot for. Set yourself up for success. Now, of course, all these things are dependent on finances, but if you can do it, you should do it. Okay, so the fourth thing I recommend here is that you should fly with multiple flight instructors. This one's simple. You will learn multiple ways of doing the same thing from different people. You'll learn how to land an airplane 7 different ways if you fly with 7 different instructors. No, I don't mean like critically different ways, but you'll pick up tips, and you'll pick up little nuances, little idiosyncrasies from each person that they brought to the table with them from some experience that they had. You can pick that up and store that away and put that in your flight bag, your mental flight bag. I'll give you an example. I flew with an instructor who was straight to the T. This is how you do it every single time. Put it on the numbers every single time. Land the airplane in the same spot every single time, and blah, 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 blah. You've flown with that guy. And then I had another instructor who said, I want you to take your hands off the yoke, and I want you to fly me back to the airport using your feet only. And I was like, okay. And the second that I did that, I learned how to use the rudder. None of the other flight instructors told me to do that, but this guy did. My point is, you pick up little tips from different instructors, different people, and then you can put them all together. And when you go and fly, you use certain tips and certain things that you learned. You pull out certain memories because they're tied to something you actually did. And you pull them out and you use them, and you're like, wow, that worked great. Like, this is the better way to do this. Or maybe that didn't work so good at this airport, but it works really good at this airport with this, crosswind, whatever. Just fly with multiple instructors, and not only will you pick up those tips, but what you'll also do is you'll figure out who you want to really be like your main instructor. You'll get on the same frequency with a person. You'll learn better from one type of person. Maybe one type of person is super type A and uses extra checklists and all these other things that maybe not be required, and that's what you like. Makes lists, goes through the breakdown of what the flight was, here's what this landing was, whatever. That might suit you. If that does, you would never know that if you just flew with the first flight instructor that you got. So I recommend when you get started to book multiple flight instructors, fly with them, pick up their tips, fly with them as many times as you can until you find the one that you really like, and then really, really, really dive deep into learning what that instructor knows and getting the best education and training from that person. Okay, a couple more here. I recommend getting your CFI, your Certified Flight Instructor. You need to get that because even if you don't plan to teach, it's going to be good for your resume. If you go into an interview and it says that you are a flight instructor or that you have your CFI, you are going to already be a little bit ahead of the game. This is something that I didn't do. I started to do it. Long story, I'll tell this story some point in the future, but it didn't work out for me. But I got I was in the system. I was learning how to become a flight instructor, and then everything kind of just fell apart, and I ended up not completing that. No fault of my own. But regardless, I kind of facilitated some teaching, ground school, some ATC. Here's what a runway looks like. Here's how you talk to ATC. Here's how you switch over to ground and ask for crossing a runway. That actually helped me. I put that on my resume, And then that question came up in an interview, and I talked about it, and they're like, "Okay, cool, that sounds good." And I said, "Yeah, that I did that, and that actually helped me during my interview." So you should get your CFI even if you plan on, skipping the instructor phase. But if you do become an instructor, of course you're going to become a better pilot, and you're going to be set up for the airlines because they require that. Okay, the last tip that I have for you guys before we close out this show is you really could benefit from building what I like to call a pilot Rolodex. Rolodex is basically your contact list in your phone. You need to talk to as many people as you can and get as many phone numbers as you can while you're still in your training. I still have every single CFI I ever flew with saved in my phone. Why? I just never know when I'm going to need to call them, or I never know when I'm going to run into somebody who knows them, who knows a person who needs a job, and this person that I flew with has the right job lined up. I mean, you just don't know. You got to build a community. And in aviation, it's such a small world, as they always say. Typically, all the pilots know some other pilots and you just stay connected. But to be a little bit more specific, you should be knocking on people's doors. For example, let's say you really want to fly float planes. Go find a float plane pilot. Talk to him. Ask him, hey, is there any possible way I could just sit in the back while you're doing a flight? I just want to see what it's like. He might say yes, or she might say yes. Pretty good chance that they will. Let's say you want to. Now, there's some jobs you can't do. You can't just sit in the cockpit of a 737 and fly. You just can't do that. There's regulations for that. But there are some times that you can witness or experience the job that you're interested in before you're even out of your private. So I recommend doing that. If you have to go sweep floors at a hangar, so that way you can talk to the guy who owns the airplane that's in that hangar, and that maybe you can get a ride in that airplane. You should do that. Like, what's it going to cost you? Some of your time? Go do that. Go ask around and see if you can get connected with people who you want to be, connected with. I know that sounds weird, but I know, perfect example. I have a flight instructor who was not an ag pilot, but he wasn't connected. There's a thing. If you aren't blood, typically you're not going to be flying spray planes. It's a family kind of business, and if you're not in, you're not in. However, what he decided to do is he decided to go sweep floors for a company, and he did it long enough to where eventually he started talking to the pilots, he started talking to the owner, and he eventually got a job working, spraying, as a pilot. Now he owns the company. Like, how cool is that? He actually bought the business, and now he is the owner. And all he had to do was just go start talking to people, start knocking on doors. You never know when that kind of opportunity is going to come up. You just don't know. I just recommend do groundwork. Go sweep the floors. Go wash airplanes. Go learn how to do oil changes, but of course have a certified mechanic there, so it's a legal oil change. But sit there and watch. Hand him the jugs. Here's the 6th quart of oil. Like, get in there, get your hands dirty, and learn how to do these things while you're still in training. That's the best thing that I can tell you guys, is that you have so much time while you're getting your private instrument and commercial. You have so much time to learn the real world before you're actually in the real world of flying airplanes for a living, for a company, for a paycheck. So I really want to encourage you guys to get out there and do that while you are in training or before you're flying. Just go get your hands dirty and learn. The more you learn, the more tools you have in your tool bag, so that when you sit across from an interviewer and they're asking, why should I hire you? You will say, well, 2 years ago I did this. 5 years ago I did this. I have this experience. I've been in this environment. I know this field. you'll put yourself in a better position to get that job. And that's what this podcast is about, right? Low time pilot jobs. This is it right here. This is what we're talking about. So that is what I've got for you guys for this episode. Like I mentioned in the beginning, if you want to be more connected, you want to get more information, you want to listen to more content, feel free to go to any social media. We've got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, which is my favorite. Go there, look for Low Time Pilot Jobs. Just put it in the search bar. You'll find it at Low Time Pilot Jobs. Sometimes it's Pilot Job because Twitter only gives you so many characters. But whatever, you'll find it. Just look for my logo and, sign up. Either follow or become a subscriber. Do those things, and then you can stay connected to this content. Also, like I mentioned before, if you want to support the show directly, you can go to Patreon, patreon.com/low time pilot jobs. Yeah, so if you enjoy this kind of content, you really want to become a part of supporting the show, you can absolutely do that. It's pretty easy to do. Like I said, just go over to the Patreon page. Feel free to become a supporter. You can opt into 3 different tiers. Each supporter, they have the exclusive option. You can ask questions, which I'm going to use in future Q&A episodes. And you get rewards as well. Each tier has each support tier level has a reward. Like a t-shirt, or I send you a banner that I actually signed. It actually flew in the sky behind an airplane during a job that I did. So you can do that. But you don't have to. This content is always going to be free for you guys. You can support the channel if you like it and you want to be part of that. If you do decide to do that, I greatly appreciate that. I'll be able to continue putting this content out with people that are supporters. And there will be exclusive content for Patreons moving forward. So feel free to do that. Also want to recommend that you go to our Low Time Pilot Jobs Facebook group. And when you sign up in the group, you can ask questions. You can scroll through old comments, old posts, get some information from people who also have been there and done that. Additionally, there are mentors in the group. You find the mentor button, you click on it, you say, I want to talk to somebody, I want to get a mentorship. And basically, somebody else who's in the group who has been doing this for a while, they will send you a message and you can just start asking questions. It's totally free. There's no strings attached. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is just kind of reach out. You could talk to people, get some advice, and go forward from there. It's a great resource. I highly recommend that you take advantage of it. There's it's about 20,000 members in that group. So come be a member, jump in there, ask for a request to join, and I'll approve your request. And then, when you're in there, just say hi. Let me know that you heard the information from this show. Okay, you guys, I just want you to know that I really appreciate the opportunity to pass this information on to you guys. Thank you for listening. I truly aim to provide you with some of the information from experiences that I've had as a commercial pilot, as well as, if I got tips and tricks, hey, try this, do this, you should be thinking about this. Of course, I'm going to pass those on to you. I really hope that you gain value from listening to this. You can also download this podcast. You can go to Apple or Spotify or iHeartRadio. You can download this podcast, throw it on your phone, and then when you're at work or you're driving to work and you want to just listen to it, you just can do that. That's the world we live in now. So I just want to, pass on that basic guidance to you of somebody, like I said, who's been there and done that, and, being on and through every single hour of the 1,500 hours and now on the other side. And you'll get there. You just got to keep trying. You got to keep going, keep learning, keep educating yourself, keep listening to content like this, and you will find yourself in a better position, a better pilot, and you will not regret the time that you spend investing in your own education. So I'm going to leave it there for you. Thank you guys for listening to this podcast. Hope you come back for the next one. I'm going to have a Q&A episode coming up soon. And of course, I'm going to have part 2 and part 3 to this podcast coming up soon as well. So fly safe, you guys, and always fly that airplane to the finish every single time. See you guys next week.